Our marriage never would have lasted. Reflecting back, we talked about this in one of our recent episodes here, actually the one that came out last week, about our marriage and how it was when we were in the faith and how toxic it really was just because we're trying to fit in the roles we weren't meant to be put into. Candy, I was trying to be a spiritual leader and I was unsuited for this position. A newly formed Christian, only a year or two into evangelicalism when we were actually first married, trying to assert myself and be planted in this role of leadership and spiritual leadership in the household, to be the head of the house, running everything that needed to be run, directing and forcing my wife into submission. It was completely out of my character. It's something I didn't want to do. And Candy knew this. She knew the Bible better than I did. She knew Christianity better than I did. Growing up Catholic and barely even that, didn't really practice. I knew some of the main stories and stuff like that, some of the bigger lessons, but it wasn't a huge part of my life until I became evangelical. And then just spending all this time trying to catch up with her, it led an uneven relationship where she had resentment because I wasn't fulfilling roles that she needed me to fulfill, that she was told I was supposed to fulfill in our marriage. I wasn't being an effective leader. I was pretty much a dumbass trying to assert things that weren't good and whatnot into our relationship, trying to interpret and misinterpret scripture all the time. And she could call me out on it pretty easily and often did. And then so she would start taking the helm and start leading things, and then felt bad because why is she the one doing this? It's not her role. She needed to submit and do this. And if you know Candy at all, she's not one to really submit easily. She's willing to work alongside people and to help and nurture others and come along, but to completely, as a biblical definition of submission, it's not her lifestyle, and nor should it be anyone's, really. No one should be subjugated to anyone else like this is calling to, and it didn't fit her role. So we're both in roles that we didn't like. It didn't fit. It was making us, uncomfortable, to put it mildly. And thankfully, we started to deconstruct and left the faith, because that truly is probably what saved our marriage. Now, if we're being honest and look back, how marriages and relationships can be kind of tumultuous in the early parts. There's different disagreements and arguments at the beginning. The faith probably held us together through that because we couldn't break that bond with Christ. So we had to stay together through thick and thin. But we got past all that early years and all the tough times of the early times and started knowing each other and getting along, and deconstructed after that. And realizing that if we stayed in that, we would have been at each other's throats. And we see it so often with older evangelical couples that we see, where it is like a sitcom TV show where they're constantly digging at each other, and you can just feel the resentment between each other and the passive aggressive negative comments back and forth and the judgments and everything that's held out. And that's where we would have been if we would have stayed in it. But fortunately, we left the faith and learned how to live in a cohabitation of equality, to share the load and help each other out. If one was down, the other one could pick up some of the slack and carry the burden for a little bit, and vice versa. And it's been wonderful and working out. But if we would have stayed in it and stayed in them roles and that hierarchy that was performed, our lives would have been miserable and would have continued to be miserable. So I'm thankful I don't have that religious background or that religious fortitude anymore to stick it with it and keep pushing through, because it would have just made me a resentful, angry person.